Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Thursday, May the 4th. The water's still rising in northeast Arkansas, and people are facing great difficulties. Big news today in Washington. Congress, the House of Representatives, is expected to vote on the so-called American Health Care Act. This is their answer to getting rid of Obamacare. The Republicans think they have the votes in the House to pass this legislation. Most people think there'll be huge fallout from this. First of all, it's unlikely the Senate would approve this bill in the form that it's in. The reason it's having a hard time passing is it doesn't go far enough and is not nearly mean enough for the conservatives in the Republican caucus who really want to strip all federal dollars from Obamacare. The bill would reduce coverage tremendously, particularly for millions of people with pre-existing medical conditions. This is to raise money to provide a tax cut to rich people. This will be the source of campaign advertising in the days ahead. In the most hypocritical part of the legislation, in its current form, it preserves Obamacare coverage for members of Congress and their staff, not for the rest of the people in the United States, unfortunately. People in the Republican Party say they'll change this later. Checks in the mail, as I've said. Members of the Arkansas congressional delegation all say they're going to be for this bill, although French Hill's still sitting on the fence. But if it's a bill that'll help rich people and hurt poor people, I think we can expect French Hill to fall in line. Well, you know, the legislature in Arkansas recently passed legislation to allow concealed weapons in more places on college campuses and government buildings. That includes the state capitol and that big office building, Big Mac, that major committee meetings are held in by the legislature. They floated draft security regulations yesterday at the Legislative Council for the big state office building the legislature meets in. They're going to have security at the door. They're going to have metal detectors. They're going to have more security guards. You're going to have to prove that you've got the proper gun carrying credentials to enter the building. They're going to be key card access to elevators. It's going to be a very safe place if there are more guns there when this law finally takes effect next year. No such requirements are in place yet for the universities. A mother writes me that's saying that there's going to be metal detectors and you're going to have to show ID at the entrance to government buildings where the legislature meets. Why not at colleges? That's not the case. There's going to be free access for people with guns on college campuses. Does that indicate perhaps we're not safer with more guns, or maybe we are? The legislature acts differently than it speaks. There's a controversy at the University of Arkansas, by the way. Yesterday, the university announced that it was removing an administrator from his position at the head of a on-campus institute about Arab American affairs because he apparently canceled a speech by a speaker who's viewed as anti-Islam. Her appearance had raised some objections on the faculty. The people who objected said they didn't want her speech canceled, but they wanted some opposing viewpoints to be aired, but they clearly didn't like her appearance. It's not exactly clear who and why finally made the cancellation decision, but it happened. The university said that was wrong. They're going to investigate the matter further. They were under pressure already from the legislature for suppressing a point of view. It's a little hypocritical, again, of legislators to complain about suppression of speech because they've tried to suppress sexual education at Arkansas Tech, pro-Islam expressions at Arkansas State University and other things. But what the legislature doesn't like are people talking in ways they disagree with. That's the actual truth of all this. But still, the UA shouldn't stop people from speaking, and they're probably right to make sure that it doesn't happen up there. If nothing else, it gives ammunition to people like Bob Ballinger in the legislature. The Arkansas State Supreme Court today agreed that there should be a class action and a lawsuit against a nursing home owned by Michael Morton of Fort Smith, one of many nursing homes he owns, because the lawsuit says he understaffs those homes and that provides poor quality care for its patients. The lawyers in this case had wanted Rhonda Wood not to sit on the decision on whether there could be a class action. She was majority financed by Michael Morton in her race for Supreme Court, as were several other members of the court. She ended up joining in part the decision that allowed the class action suit to go forward. There really wasn't much ground to stop this class action lawsuit, although several people who tend to side with nursing homes, including Rhonda Wood, said that the case should not go forward as a class action on a negligence issue. Tony Alamo died yesterday in federal prison. He was 82 years old. He spent decades as a news figure in Arkansas. He was a sexual predator. He was a tax evader. He spread hate against Catholics for decades in Arkansas. He ran a number of dubious business schemes. He abused his followers. He ran a cult organization. He claimed to be a man of God, but the actions he took were nothing like the men of God that we think we know from our own church instruction. Good riddance to Tony Alamo. Cindy Gillespie, the head of of the State Department of Human Services had some past experience working in major Olympic Games in the U.S. in the past. That experience has got her invited to help the Los Angeles Olympic Committee work next week to try and get the games for Los Angeles in a future Olympiad. She has a little time from her job as DHS. Everything's calm over there, so she's got some time to spare. And finally, read this week's issue of the Arkansas Times. Cover stories by our editor, Lindsay Miller. It's an interview with Jeff Nichols, the famous local guy made good filmmaker. Loving was one of his film products. It's about the coming Arkansas Cinema Society that's going to try and boost film in a number of ways in Arkansas in times ahead. It's a rare interview in a local press with Jeff Nichols, and I think you'll enjoy it. We're going to keep resisting and keep talking about the ways that things can be improved in government. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.